You pass a stranger on an empty street at night, and something in you shifts. Your pace changes. Your eyes flick toward them just for a second, then away, then back again. Nothing has happened. They haven't looked at you. They haven't said a word. But your body has already made a decision, and it made that decision before your mind even finished the thought. Why does a person you've never met, who has done nothing wrong, feel like a small emergency? The obvious answer is that strangers are unpredictable. You don't know their intentions, so caution feels reasonable. But that answer doesn't go nearly far enough. Because the discomfort isn't really about this particular stranger, it's about something far older, something that has almost nothing to do with the person walking towards you and everything to do with the size of the world your brain was actually built for. For nearly all of human history, you would never have passed a true stranger. Not once, in an entire lifetime. The people around you every single day were people you had known since birth, or people your parents had known, or people who were connected to you through a long chain of names and faces that never really ended in a question mark. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying the size of human social groups, and his research points to a striking number, roughly 150. That's the rough ceiling on how many stable relationships a human brain can meaningfully track at once. Names, faces, histories, debts, and loyalties all held together in memory. Think about what that means. A group of 150 is small enough that everyone has a story. Everyone has a reputation. If someone in that group did something cruel last winter, you would know. If someone had always shared their food, you would know that too. There was no such thing as an unknown quantity. The entire social world came pre-labeled with trust or suspicion, built up over years of shared history. Now picture what a true stranger meant inside a world like that. It meant someone had crossed from outside your 150 into the middle of it, with no history attached to them at all. No reputation, no story you could check with someone else. That absence of information was not a small gap. It was the single most dangerous kind of unknown your ancestors could encounter, because a person with no history could be carrying anything: hostility, disease, or a rival group testing your defenses. The stranger wasn't just unfamiliar. They were a blank space where trust should have been, and blank spaces were where the real threats used to hide. This is where your amygdala enters the story. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux built much of his career mapping how the brain detects and responds to threat, and his research shows something important about speed. The brain's threat detection system doesn't wait for you to consciously evaluate a person. It fires first, fast, beneath language, before your slower-thinking mind even catches up. That flicker of tension you feel around an unfamiliar face isn't a flaw in your reasoning. It's your reasoning arriving late to a decision your brain already made. So why would evolution build something this twitchy, this quick, to sound an alarm over someone who is very likely harmless? Because for most of your evolutionary history, the cost of two different mistakes was wildly unequal. If you assumed a stranger was safe and you were wrong, the consequences could be catastrophic: violence, theft, exposure to your entire group. If you assumed a stranger was dangerous and you were wrong, you lost almost nothing. Maybe an awkward moment, maybe a missed opportunity for connection. A brain built to survive doesn't split that difference evenly. It leans hard toward the mistake that costs less, which means it leans toward suspicion by default. Psychologists John Tooby and Leda Cosmides have argued that the mind evolved specialized tools for exactly this kind of problem. Tools built around detecting who belongs to your group and who doesn't, who can be trusted with cooperation and who might exploit it. Their research on what's often called coalitional psychology suggests your brain isn't just processing familiar versus unfamiliar as a neutral fact. It's actively sorting people into categories that once determined survival itself, ally or threat, in-group or out-group, known or dangerously unknown. Here's the part that should make you pause. None of this machinery has updated. You now live surrounded by thousands of strangers every single day, on trains, in stores, walking down crowded streets, and your ancient alarm system still treats each one as a small variation on the same old question: is this a threat? It cannot tell the difference between a true 40,000-year-old danger and a stranger simply reaching into their own bag for their own phone. That mismatch explains something else too, something almost the opposite of fear. It explains why a single kind gesture from a stranger can feel disproportionately moving. When someone you don't know holds a door, or returns something you dropped, or simply smiles at you for no reason, it registers as significant precisely because your ancient wiring didn't expect kindness from an unlabeled face. A stranger crossing from threat into warmth, even briefly, resolves the exact tension your brain was built to hold. That's why it can feel so good. You are quietly rewriting a blank space into a safe one, even if only for a moment. It also explains the strange comfort of small, repeated exchanges. The same barista every morning, the same neighbor's nod, the same person on your regular train. These people are still technically strangers, in the sense that you don't share deep history with them. But your brain doesn't fully register them that way anymore. Each repeated, harmless encounter adds a tiny thread of information, a small update to the story your ancient tracking system keeps. Eventually, that person stops feeling unlabeled. They start to feel, in some small biological sense, like they belong somewhere just outside your circle of 150. So the next time you feel that flicker of tension passing an unfamiliar face, you don't have to fight it, and you don't have to be embarrassed by it either. It isn't rudeness, and it isn't paranoia. It's an old, careful machine doing exactly the job it was built to do, running an ancient calculation on a world that has gotten far bigger and far safer than the one that built it. Somewhere behind that instinct is a version of you that never knew a stranger who didn't matter, and a mind still doing its very best to protect a group that, these days, is nearly everyone.